I'll say good day to you this day of your time. Today's transmission is a break from the steps. We would like to introduce a deeper explanation of the concept of what we refer to as soul cycle, the cycle of the soul. So your title is Soul Cycle. The idea being that in looking at the diagram that we have provided, you start as a soul. Imagine a sphere of light, choosing to become physical, or in other words, to have a physical experience, as we have outlined, is the product of the soul choosing specific paths, specific experiences, so the soul can grow, specific ideas, specific challenges. And this is done by creating certain patterns of energy within the soul. And these patterns of energy will allow part of the soul to render down bit by bit, collapsing down into the center of the soul, as you see in the diagram. These vibrations and these specific frequencies, these specific vibrations, as they collapse down into the center, as they are focused into the center of the soul, first and foremost, create the idea of the planning stage, the blueprint stage, the template stage, where you lay out, vibrationally speaking, all of the challenges, all of the themes that you are choosing to explore specifically for the soul's growth in what you refer to as this incarnation. So this is where you arrange and order, from conversations with your guides, with soul family, so on and so forth, the beginning of condensing down into a kind of pattern, that which represents the blueprint of the physical experience that you are choosing to have. It orders the idea of what the personality will be like, how you will approach things, and the way in which you will allow yourself to experience challenges so that you can transform them and overcome them. And then as the vibrations continue to condense a part of the soul, remember, the whole soul still stays there. That has not shrunk, but the condensation has happened within the soul, so that a part of the soul, some of the material, so to speak, of the soul, within the soul is being condensed down by these vibrations, by these frequencies that represent the soul's path in physical experience, reality. And so as it continues to condense, now you're talking about arriving at the level where the soul is about to be born physically through the physical processes that you experience in space and time, physical birth. And in that condensation, the soul develops the connection again, remains and retains the connection with the higher mind, which is what the soul is. But now you have a reference to the idea of becoming a physical focused being, but maintaining the connection to the soul, which you are now starting to refer to as the higher mind, the non-physical mind, that remains in spirit, so to speak, or remains its natural spirit self, because even the physical body is still within spirit, because it's within the soul. It's just an arrangement of frequencies that allows you to experience the idea of physicality in a different way than you typically experience yourself as a spirit, as a soul. But the idea is that the body is still part of the spirit, part of the soul. It's just a different arrangement of it, a different focus within it. And now you've arrived where you have the physical birth and being a young child, which is still very strongly connected in awareness to the soul, and can, in a sense, kind of expand back out and condense again and expand back out in a way that you would recognize from the space-time perspective as the opportunity for the young child to still go back to spirit, to not necessarily remain as a physical focused being. So for about 7 years on average, a young child still has the ability to be aware of its connection to all that is, its connection to higher mind and soul, to communicate freely, to remember things like other incarnations, so on and so forth, other connections to extraterrestrial forms, so on and so forth, but to also start organizing over those 7 years, on average, can be 9 years, can be less, but on average about 7 years, start organizing in a way that it starts absorbing ideas telepathically from its parents, its society, its schooling, its friends, to lay the foundation, to overlay the challenges, the belief systems, to feed the personality with the belief systems and arrange them that will be representative of the challenges that that soul chose to face. So now this is where they start becoming crystallized into a physical personality based on the belief systems that are necessary in order to experience the challenges that the soul chose to experience in order to discover new aspects, new perspectives of itself, and to grow by transforming these challenges and overcoming these challenges to discover a new aspect of the self. And then, in the final completion of the solidification, the crystallization of that physical persona within the center of the soul, when all the vibrations have, in a sense, finished their task of creating that physical personality within the center of the soul, now you have the older child or the adult that is fully ensconced within the idea of the physical reality it has chosen to experience, the culture it has chosen to experience, the belief systems, the themes it has chosen to experience, and how the personality expresses itself, and how it goes about responding, reacting through the belief systems to whatever it is that will give it the best opportunity to face these challenges and to transform them in a way that will allow the soul to grow. Then the cycle, in a sense, is reversed. As the soul and the physical personality learns more and more, as it chooses to transform challenges in a variety of different ways, the consciousness begins to expand again. And so the physical crystallized idea of the personality that is representative of the physical being starts to soften, starts to expand back out again, and becomes more aware, becomes more connected, aware of its connections to higher mind and other dimensions and spirit and ETs and all sorts of things. And this is the transition that you experience from the very dense third density physical experience to the less dense fourth density physical experience, which is where many of you are now transitioning into. You're becoming a fourth density human. That means your consciousness is a little bit more relaxed, more expanded, going back out toward the idea of what you are as a soul, allowing more of the vibrational connections that created your physical personality to be used as conduits of communication to the soul, to the higher mind, so that you can inform yourself, you can be a better antenna and a receiver for messages from your guides and soul family and angelic realms and extraterrestrials and extra-dimensionals and parallel realities and so on and so forth. Now you're using those vibrations that the soul used to create the physical personality as conduits of communication. So now these vibrations serve a different function. Whereas initially they were used to collapse a part of the soul into a physical persona, now with the expansion of your consciousness back outward a little bit, you are now able to use those same vibrational frequencies as conduits of communication. And then the next step up, you can see, is more the idea of a representation of an out-of-body experience, an astral form, which you experience when you are dreaming, when the body is asleep, where you are going on adventures and having conversations and having other experiences that the physical personality may remember as a dream. But for the moment, you are a little bit more expanded, And when you wake up in the morning, you may collapse back down again, but maybe not so far. So again, you are retaining the ability to ponder what that experience was about in terms of what you remember as a dream. And you are able to use those conduits of communication more efficiently because of what you learned by having the astral experience, the out-of-body experience, while your body was asleep, when you were dreaming. And so, the idea is that then the astral form, being closer to spirit, between, it is not on this chart, but between the fourth density level expansion diagram and between the astral diagram is where my civilization is. As we say, we are quasi-physical, having the traits of both physical reality and spirit, so that we are actually experiencing the way you would experience reality as an astral being while we are still physical. So halfway in between that second and third stage on the diagram on the right is where my civilization exists, where we are evolving more toward being permanently astral, permanently spirit, but still retain physical properties in many different ways for a variety of reasons. But then as you start practicing more of becoming more expanded as a consciousness, spending more time in the astral realm, making different kinds of connections, learning what you needed to learn as lessons from that physical experience, and then arriving toward the end of the timing that you chose for your physical experience, then you go through the idea of the physical death, you're expanding back out fully into spirit, back fully into the idea of the soul form that you are, that sphere of light, that sphere of energy, that is the natural form of your soul. And so you have then completed the cycle, which then you can decide to do again in a different way, going round and round and round, collapsing into the center, expanding back out, collapsing into the center, and expanding back out as you experience what you perceive from your linear space-time perspective to be a series of incarnational experiences that you call past lives and present lives and alternate lives, parallel lives and future lives, and so on and so forth. But it's all happening within the soul as you collapse down, expand back out, collapse down, expand back out, and experience the idea of space-time and then timelessness, and space-time and then timelessness. We will talk about the degree of time in another transmission, because there is a difference between the way you experience the concept of time in physical reality, the way you experience the concept of time as a soul, and the way that the oversoul experiences the concept of time. And we will discuss this at another time. But for now, you can see in this chart the idea of the soul cycle, the cycle of the soul, as it creates experiences within itself and then goes back to its full self and then condenses down for a different experience and goes back. So it's kind of like breathing, in and out, in and out, the expansion and collapse and focus of consciousness, and the expansion back into the idea of the full awareness of the soul. Now, this idea still all happens simultaneously, even though we are describing it from a linear perspective, as if these condensations happen one after another. That's the linear perspective. But again, we will discuss at another time the perspective of the oversoul, where all of these collapses down to different personalities and all the expansions back up to the soul level all happen simultaneously from the oversoul's point of view. So, we would like to have then presented this to you so you can ponder this cycle, ponder this chart, and understand the idea of what is happening, so that you realize that the truth is your body does not have a soul. Your soul has a body. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. And it is within yourself as a soul that everything you call the physical reality experience happens, until you decide to expand back out and experience yourself once again as the full soul that you are, always have been, and forever shall be, because you are eternal and you are infinite, and that is who you are, and that is what you are, as an aspect of all that is. So we thank you for allowing us to share this idea with you this day of your time. We will present this to you again in this session as a form of meditation so that you can truly lock this idea in and feel the vibrations of this idea and understand how to incorporate this concept within your daily life. So we will do that in our meditation in this transmission. But for now, we thank you for allowing us to share this with you, and in return for the gift you are giving us of experiencing all of you, I ask, in what way may we continue to be of service to you? Please begin with your dialogues and your questions if you wish.
Hi Bashar, Alicia here. I wanted to speak about an experience I had maybe 6 years ago relative to our time. And the experience is with Source itself, all that is. And I would describe it as very similar to the sun, but a white ball of energy. And I could imagine, I can still feel it almost being hit with, just fire. I felt like I was being burnt, but I knew it was unconditional love and acceptance. And I remember floating and, just telepathically speaking with Source. And not too long after that, I ended up just shutting the door, shutting off all from metaphysics, quantum mechanics, spirituality, and I just closed it off. And I want to understand why Source decided that would be the opportune moment for me to experience itself. And why, knowing that after experiencing, I would shut it off and completely close that door. And I want to understand what my purpose is, because I still am wanting to understand. And I feel like there's a block that is preventing me from doing so after already knowing and being exposed to a multitude of truths and itself.
Well, you were shown what you actually are, that you are Source, you come from Source. You are given the vibration to reach for through the challenges in your life. So you shut down the direct connection so that you could climb the ladder by going through and facing the challenges that would ultimately bring you back to being able to connect to that frequency again. But you were given the opportunity to know exactly what that frequency feels like, so that you have something to aim for and understand that that's where the challenges that you choose to transform in positive ways will ultimately take you if you keep transforming those challenges. Good day.
Thank you so much for this interaction, Bashar.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
So you've described both the physical body and the personality structure as being the prism through which our pure consciousness is filtered in order to create our physical reality experience.
Yes.
I was wondering, what is the difference then between the personality structure and the physical body?
Well, the personality structure is what determines what the physical body is going to be in terms of how it arranges its DNA components when it is laid out on the blueprint level. Does that make sense? Do you understand?
So the personality structure, the beliefs, thoughts, and emotions do that?
Yes, it's all woven into the structure of the genetics that will reinforce the belief system that is germane for that personality structure to have in order to face the challenges that the soul chose to face in that physical experience. So when the body is being formed, shall we say, when it's being patterned, when it is about to be born physically, the vibrations structure the DNA to structure the body, to incorporate the belief systems within that genetic structure, to incorporate it within the personality structure, so that that body will express itself, that personality will express itself in the way that is necessary for it to face the challenges it chose to face for the soul's growth. Does that make sense?
Yes, to some degree it makes sense. I will need to absorb it a little more, but
All right.
so all of those, so it sounds like the beliefs part of the personality structure comes before anything else. Is
In the forming of the personality, yes, the belief systems have to be there. Now, there is some looseness to it at the beginning, and the looseness is crystallized and solidified over a brief period of time, over a few years, when the belief system is also willing to absorb belief systems from its surroundings, from its parents, its schooling, its society, so on and so forth, to complete the picture that that personality needs in order to face the challenges in the way it needs to face those challenges, to learn, to grow, and to have the experience it chose to have. So the genetics are arranged with some structure, but also arranged to allow for some belief systems from its environment to come in to complete the structure that it will then face as a physical persona growing up.
okay, and so that's almost set in stone after a certain age?
Yes, somewhere around 7 years of age, 9 years of age, it becomes more crystallized, and now you are on the momentum, you're on the path of experiencing the challenges you chose to experience for your soul's growth.
Okay, but we're still able to change our beliefs. We've been told that we can.
But that's part of the process of the soul growing, is to learn how to do that.
Okay.
That's what you set yourself up to do. I'm going to impose these particular belief systems that I will have the opportunity to change. It is that process of change that allows the soul to discover something new and to grow. So you set yourself up with things that ideally you will be able to change.
I see. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. The next question I have is about as above, so below.
Yes.
You say everything in physical reality has a spirit version of itself.
First. Yes.
Okay.
So, in a sense, it's really more like anything in spirit has potentially a physical version if relevant. There are more things in spirit than there are on earth. As is in your text, there are more things in heaven than you imagine in your philosophy. So there are more things in spirit than you experience on earth, because not everything is relevant to experience in a physical way. But everything that is physical has a component in spirit first.
Okay. How would something like a disease that is in physical reality that we see the symptoms of, how would that look in spirit, for example?
As a pattern of energy that is, from your perspective, potentially discordant.
Okay, so there can be discordant things in spirit, anything.
Well, let me put it this way. It's like a blueprint. I'm going to have this experience of this disease, which is something that is representative of being out of balance with my core frequency. So, as a blueprint, you may see it as something that looks like it's slightly shifted off of the center core essential frequency in a way that would cause a discordant harmonic between the two, just to put it in energy terms.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Now I have some questions about the social experiment.
Yes.
Um, Now for the letter we sent out,
Yeah.
it was signed the Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment Group,
Yes.
uh, and I'm a member of that. I've been doing the steps,
All
but
right.
I didn't consciously write the letter. I was just wondering who actually wrote it, and how did you use our consciousnesses in
In
writing it?
exactly the same way that you are experiencing conversation with us now. We downloaded it to the channel, who then translated it into words on his computer.
Okay. Um, so it's a reflection of our collective higher mind, the
Always.
letter? Mhm. Okay. And that's, I guess, how all the social experiment steps were created as well.
Yes, but it's also a reflection of something that allows us to observe the reactions of individuals who choose to participate.
Now, what will happen if people want to embellish the ID cards or
The degree
or
to which that might be done, even though we are suggesting that it may not necessarily be done, will again tell us something about the way people perceive things, how they approach things, how they interact with things. And that's part of the reason for this social experiment, is not only for you to utilize these things to your own effect and your own advantage, but for us to observe what happens when you do them, when you align with it, or when you do something different than we suggested.
okay. Um, on that same general theme, I sent a letter out to one of my senators, and he suggested that I call someone who works under him, who's in charge of the space aspect of his work, I guess, and to talk about this subject with him. And I felt
All right.
excited to do that, but then I thought maybe this is going out of the bounds of the social experiment since it was connected to the letter. Do you have any guidance on that?
You may have a conversation. It depends on what the subject is. But again, you can also turn them on to the idea of the origin of that letter and let them discover things for themselves. But it's all right to have a conversation about subjects that are similar to what is covered in the letter.
Okay.
All we are basically saying is you don't necessarily have to explain what the social experiment is to them, but you can certainly discuss subjects that are contained within the idea of the social experiment, like the existence of extraterrestrial beings and the desire for disclosure and things like that.
Okay, and I can refer them to bashar.org for the
If they
official.
wish to understand the actual parameters involved in the social experiment, yes, that you don't have to explain. They can find that out for themselves. But you can certainly have discussions about subjects that are peripheral to what the letter is about.
Okay. What does a white flower symbolize to the collective consciousness of the Interstellar Alliance?
The opening of consciousness to higher vibrations, to higher light.
Okay. All right.